All right, so we can get started. I'm Alex Labati, a product marketer here at Sherweb, and I'm thrilled to introduce our webinar, Effortless AVD with Nerdio. Presenting today's session is Jason Lambert, Sherweb's advocate of Azure solutions. Jason is a cloud infrastructure veteran with over 10 years of experience assisting MSPs in enhancing their Azure skill sets and building IaaS solutions for their clients. In today's webinar, we will cover how Nerdio helps MSPs accelerate AVD, how to set up a golden image and host pool, how to use the estimator tool for seamless deployment. It would be most appreciative if you have any questions to please save them at the end for the Q&A session, which we'll have some time to go over them. Now let's dive into today's webinar. Jason, over to you.
Thank you, Alex. So I want to get started and talk a little bit about Sherweb for MSPs. If you are a customer of Sherweb, you may be familiar with this. If you're not a customer of Sherweb, we want to let you know that we're an organization that can help enable you as a partner. We have resources, we have teams of people that are here to help you from your Office 365 opportunities all the way through to Azure opportunities. We can help with solution design. If you need assistance, putting an opportunity together, estimating it with the Azure calculator, or perhaps you've got an opportunity that you've put together an estimate on. We have people perhaps that would give you a second set of eyes, see if there's anything on there that you may have missed, and be able to help you put that together for your customer. We also have a team of people that can help optimize. So when you have your Azure infrastructure set up, you may over time have your customer tell you that they feel like the billing is out of whack, or it's more than they actually budgeted for. We have people that can help you understand what's missing, make sure that you're getting the right workload or the right output on the server for the workload that it's performing for, and ensure that you have a great experience up in Microsoft Azure. As I go through our team, we have people behind these resources. So Ron Farrar is our business development manager. He takes care of basically any opportunity that you have. If you wind up talking with your account manager or your sales associate here at Sherweb, and you need help around Azure, they'll reach out and get Ron involved. And then supporting Ron, partner facing rather, is our pre-sales technical resources, Neil Kosh and Christian Arena. Both of them Neil's a solutions architect and Christian is a pre-sales specialist. So they can certainly help you, again, support any of the parts of Azure that I talked about a little bit earlier there. So what is Nerdio Manager for MSP, and how could this tool Nerdio help an MSP accelerate their go-to-market? Nerdio Manager is a platform that the team at Nerdio put together, and it makes, for the MSP, it makes the Azure experience simpler. If you're comfortable with Microsoft and you're comfortable in Azure, maybe you've done some work, maybe you've already done deployments around AVD in Azure today, then you may, again, continue to keep using the Azure tool. Nerdio, what we found is they really have dialed in to the MSP experience, and the tools that they have, I want to almost call it like it's an Azure portal light. Everything is basically under one website and one pane of glass. So if you, for example, want to do an AVD deployment, you can go ahead and set up your host pool and your golden image. We're going to talk about that later on in today's presentation. I'm actually going to show you at a high level. And then if you needed to set up an application server or a SQL server, all that can be done in the Nerdio portal. As you can see at the top of this slide, not only does Nerdio have the abilities to help you manage your Azure infrastructure, they also have brought in Endpoint Intune. So if you're looking to set up policies for your users as well as mobility, if you have users that have their own, tablets, mobile phones, mobile devices, you can actually really dial in on what they can and can't do. You can set up policies for them. There's also an ability to start building out GPO. If you have GPO on-prem today and you want to get into Azure, you can actually start importing your GPO and your policies into Intune, and Intune will validate if it's a policy that it can actually take advantage of out of the box. Identity and Azure AD, which is actually intra ID. So if you have been around Azure for a while and you're very used to the Azure AD, Active Directory, P1, P2, Microsoft rebranded them as Entra ID. They're absolutely the same product. Microsoft didn't change or remove any features out of it. They really just did a name branding. So Azure AD P1 is the same features, P2 are the same features as well. You can also, to some degree, you won't buy, I'm trying to move, well, I guess I won't worry about it. You won't buy your SaaS 365 licenses through the Nerdio portal, but you can manage some of the licensing through the Azure portal. And so, for example, if you have the right license, for example, maybe Microsoft Business Premium, where it has an AVD or a Windows license included in it, you'd be able to, add that license to the hosted virtual desktop for the user that has Business Premium. And then Security Defender, if you're taking advantage of Microsoft Security Platform, and I would say to you today, Microsoft has made more investments over the last number of years in security. They're actually they're very much, Microsoft is very much a force to be reckoned with. If you go back, I would say, maybe 10 years or so, I know if you wanted to set up a desktop, you would find just about any other security solution, then use a Microsoft product. Today, that's a different story. Microsoft was actually, in 2023, there was an independent survey done, and Microsoft was best in class for email security. So your Microsoft 365 email, best in class. So you may, if you're haven't taken a look at Microsoft around their security features, also the Defender platform, I'd highly encourage you to do that. Not only does it work for your desktops, but you can also support servers with your Defender series. And all of it ties back into Microsoft Security Suite. Sentinel is a great platform to be able to manage and monitor security features in and around your Microsoft deployment. I don't want to get too far off topic, but Nerdio is very simplified and streamlined. You can add additional margin by using Nerdio, depending on how you set it up. And your customers, so how does this enable an MSP to be more successful in this new environment that we're in? I would say a lot of customers are moving to a remote workforce. Not all, but it seems to be very hot in the Sherweb ecosystem. We've got partners that are deploying Nerdio all the time for their customers, and it just gives a great experience. So myself as a consumer of Microsoft product, I use my desktop, I use my work laptop, I use my mobile device, I use a tablet. These are all tools that I use to be able to do my work in a day-to-day basis, and I'm okay utilizing my own services. Microsoft Intune actually, if you have what was it, business premium license, and you enroll your device, your mobile device or tablet into the Intune platform and get it all set up, you actually on your main screen where your applications are, it actually says personal and work. And Microsoft really does divide that your device up securely so that what you do in work remains separate from what you do in your personal life. And then if by chance, you leave that organization, they can remove the Intune service and remove the corporate work environment and keep your personal environment intact. So all your pictures, your contacts, all the data that you care about will remain intact on your device. So it's really cool to be able to take advantage of such great service and be able to use my own device. So Nerdio or AVD actually empowers the user to use any device and any browser. So as long as you have connectivity to the internet, you can get to your desktop. And if let's hypothetically say you're in the middle of writing, an offer to a new employee, and you want to get that offer out, you get halfway through writing the offer, and then your customer calls and they've got to fire and you got to take off. You can go do that and then basically, log back into your desktop, say from a browser at your customer's office securely, and finish writing that proposal hypothetically while you're waiting for things to be done internally at the customer's office, and then finish it and send it. You would leave off exactly where you finished. You don't have to save it and then bring it all back up again. It'd be there for you. So MSPs choose Nerdio Manager. It's super easy on the deployment side. You get cost optimization with auto scaling, so you can actually scale up and scale out to help your customers access their desktop, at their leisure. You can actually even set up times. So let's say your customer is a 9 to 5 shop. You could set up through through Nerdio the ability to have your environment spin up at like 8:30 in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning, and then spin down at 9 o'clock, or 6 o'clock in the evening after perhaps it did you set up to do a backup between 5 and 6, and then at 6 it actually turns off, and then you only actually pay for the 8 hours a day or 40 hours a week roughly that you consume the service. That can be done, and you can also set up the ability, let's say managers or there's people that work over the course of the weekend, you can actually, instead of suspending the whole service, you can actually come down to maybe one server that's up and running while the environment is quiet. And then if somebody logs in, they have a seamless experience. And if more people log in, it continues to scale out. So if you look across here, this slide, it's an interesting slide. I would say yes. Nerdio is quicker. Nerdio does have API calls. It's an incredible service. We're going to do a little bit of a demo a little bit later on in the presentation. The timelines between what Nerdio does and what Azure's done, how long it takes Azure to spin up, I would say it's not as much as what has been shown on this slide. Microsoft has got much better at deploying faster, and that's happened over time. Back in the day, and I perhaps shouldn't have had this slide in here. If you go back 3-4 years, yes, Nerdio by far made the Azure experience better as far as getting your services deployed. Today, I would say they're probably pretty close. And Microsoft also has a quick launch for AVD that you can use. So this is a good slide to give you an idea of cost reduction strategies for Azure Virtual Desktop. So if you looked across, you got your compute, your storage, your FX Logic storage, per month and per user. And you go across whether you're doing auto scale, if your operating system disk shrinks to 64 gigs. So you could actually use more storage in production and then be able to downsize your storage if you needed to, when it's not being consumed. So those are different ways that you can take a look at some of these services and be able to see some great cost savings just by, managing your Nerdio environment to your customer's requirement, to their business needs. And that's not done overnight either. It's not like, you get this set up 3 weeks down the road, you're back in and you've got it, all optimized up. It's going to take some time for the customer to get used to the experience and take advantage of the performance. And then as they continue to grow, you can continue to optimize. So if you look back, before COVID, there was a lot of people actually working within the office, and we talk about what's happened after in this environment. And we're finding that more people are actually working from home or working, wherever they have an internet connection. And that's just something that you can really take advantage of and provide great services to your customer. So the building blocks, you can get into zero trust security, unified modern identity, data in the cloud, endpoint management. You can you can deploy or access rather your AVD through Mac OS. Again, all you need is HTML5 browser, and you can log into the service and make sure, get your best experience, and recognize that when you're logging into the Azure data center. So you're getting a 10 gig backbone. So if you had, for example, CAD files or, video files that are very, very large and you need to share them amongst your team, moving them around in the Azure data center is very, very quick. So you're going to get some great experiences, not only from moving big files, but it's relatively snappy to get applications running, open browsers, and do your day-to-day work up in Azure. So you need to make sure you're protecting your data in the remote working world. And so if you were to look at what happens on-prem, a lot of customers, I think there's a comfort in having their data, their infrastructure on-prem, but they're just as vulnerable on-prem. And we're seeing it more and more in the news where smaller organizations are getting hacked and attacked. So it's kind of like, do I really need car insurance? Most of the time, I've never personally put a claim in for car insurance and never had an accident, knock on wood. But I still have car insurance. So on-prem, I would say your customers think the same way. Like, I've never been hacked. I probably won't ever be hacked until it happens. And then, they're going through the challenges of remediation. So you guys are, for sure, as an MSP, you're deploying your best practices, around security and management on the on-premise environment. But there also is the ability for customers, for users within the customer, to take advantage of corporate data. And so a lot of small businesses can't operate if they lose their corporate data. It's pretty much the lifeblood of their organization. So bringing that into the modern world, when you look at AVD, you're really managing your corporate data, so much so that if you're using a mobile device, and I talked earlier about dividing the device, having a personal side of it and the work side of it, I can't copy and paste, say, my customer list from my mobile device on the work side to the personal side. The service just won't allow me to do it. So I'd have to find another way to do that if I really wanted to. But the goal is to really maintain and contain and protect corporate data so the organization continues to move forward. Providing flexibility for your employees. I can bring any device I want, and I can use that device based on the policies that the corporation wants and that you've deployed within the service. You're managing and securing multiple devices for each user, infrastructure flexibility. Your customer no longer has to worry about the refresh cycle of, there's new software, so I got to go get a new server, or I've got a server, I need to have that server refreshed. Microsoft takes care of all the infrastructure under the operating system, basically from the hypervisor on down. That is all managed by Microsoft. You are basically providing services through the operating system and out to the customer. So that also talks about shared responsibility, which we're not getting into in this presentation, but I just thought I'd bring it up. And then maintaining high levels of employee productivity. I think we all know the more devices we have access to, we're working different hours. I might be working 5 o'clock in the morning, putting together a presentation. I might be working at 7 o'clock at night. So you just really have a great way to manage. Microsoft tooling is, one flavor for all businesses from large enterprise all the way down to SMB. That's their platform. Again, we're going to take a look at in a couple of minutes the Nerdio platform, and you're going to see it is very intuitive. There's a lot of MSP features, backup, DR, managing policies, Azure AD. I can't think of the other one off the top of my head, but managing AD, IAM, and stuff like that. It's all in there. I'm not going to go too deep on that. The rest of that slide. Also, I kind of skipped to the end. We're going to do a demo on the tool, but we do have more webinars coming up on Wednesdays. So we've got this series, Wednesday webinars. So as you can see, the 24th, 31st, 14th, 21st, and 28th are webinars coming up. You guys can certainly be able to register them. We'll get this presentation out to you at the end of the presentation. You'll get it later, probably today or tomorrow. So let me just stop here. And I'm going to bring up, I wish I could move this thing. Oh, again, not very far. Okay. Let's see here. So this is Nerdio Manager for MSP. Super easy to take advantage of the service. Basically, if you decide you want to move forward with Nerdio, number one, you would want to get a subscription set up for yourself. There would be an application service that you would run, and it comes out of the Azure Marketplace. So the Nerdio tool is in the Azure Marketplace. You find it in the Azure Marketplace, and then you deploy it. And Nerdio it's very intelligent. It does all the deployment. It's going to ask you for your subscription. It's going to ask you for resource group. Either if you already have one set up, you can just select it. If not, you're going to create it as you set the service up. And once you're locked and loaded and followed all the instructions, you'll wind up with a dashboard that looks like mine. And so if I click on the logo, it's just going to take me back to the beginning. And this, in this area, would be where all your customers are located. So you can put the client ID here, or the logo rather, company name, and then information about their Nerdio service. And if I click manage, it's actually going to take me into that customer. And as you can see here, I can manage users, I can manage groups, your desktop images. You can make different desktop images. If I go, I'll give it a click here. My image is currently off. I'm not going to be able to go through the whole deployment of it. It'd take too long based on the presentation, but I will walk through how we created this. Azure AVD, so host pools, user sessions. One of the neat things about AVD that you can do, and Nerdio 100% supports it, is you can have a hosted desktop, or you can just have hosted applications. So depending on the user's experience, if they need an entire desktop, great. Maybe you have somebody there that just needs access to Outlook and Excel, and they spend 90% of their time in those two tools, or 100% of those time in those two tools. You could just have hosted applications on Nerdio, and Nerdio will help you manage it. You got different catalogs to take advantage of, certificates. One of the neat things when you're setting up your desktop image is you can add in third-party software. So Nerdio has a very extensive catalog, and you're going to see when I go ahead and fire this up, when I created the image, I had Adobe and 7-Zip and 3CX, I think. I had that software installed with my image. So every time I rolled that image out for users, they're going to have that software in there. So it just makes it really easy. Also, if you had your own software, maybe it's an application that's not in the catalog, you can go ahead and have that software installed and have it up and running, on your image. Your image is a Windows machine. So when you fire it up, it'll look exactly like a Windows desktop, and you can install whatever you need in there, and then package it back up so it's ready to go when you want to start firing up desktops for your users. You go down here, there's servers. If, let's say, I had 2 or 3 application servers, a SQL server, a file server, all those servers, we can have them set up. You can add an AD domain controller, or just add a primary server right here. You can also set up your network. You can do your VNets, VPN, network security groups. You can get public IP. These are all great services that, as an MSP managing for your customer, you're going to take advantage of them. Your NAT gateway, Azure Files. So if you're not familiar with Azure Files is a pseudo replacement for an on-premises file server. So if your customer does have an on-premise file server and they do have people that are working locally within the company, you can set up Azure Files similarly to, if you're familiar with OneDrive, where you have some of your most current data available on your desktop, and then some of it you can see in OneDrive. It'll have a pointer to the cloud, and it's got an image of it on your desktop. So the whole file's not there, but it just lets you know if you click on it, it'll download it off the cloud and you'll have access to it. So Azure File is in the same vein. You could set it up and say, anything accessed within the last 60 days is going to remain on-prem, and then everything that's 60 days and older would be uploaded to the cloud for long-term keeping. And then if you want to get that back, or somebody needs a file, they can go just log in and get it. There would be a little bit of latency because the system is downloading it first before the user's actually getting it. So you can have that set up. If you just had Azure files set up in Azure, you could set it up as just a drive attachment. So it would be, you have your C drive, your D drive would be taken. So anything from E beyond in the alphabet, you could make that, an attached drive. Backups, you can manage your customer backups through here. I've actually done some different demos. So what you're seeing here is people playing around with the service, scripted actions, reports, and settings. Certainly things you can see the users, login activity, estimated versus deployed. And so if you created a estimate through the calculator tool, which I'll jump into in a second, and then you have something deployed, as long as you kept the estimator tool, you can basically use the reports to go against what you estimated and see where you may have over or under deployed based on what you spoke to the customer about. So I'm going to pop back out here just because I don't want to forget about it. We can go to the cost estimator. So the cost estimator on Nerdio is a very, very good tool. I mean, I'm waiting for the API here to fire up, but yeah, I mean, here we go. You can estimate and get your customer's price based on a user, which when you're in Azure, it's sometimes hard to calculate it all out. Like it takes longer to calculate it all out and then, divide it by number of users, where anything and everything I change in this estimator will change my pricing. So although I'm not getting the O365 or M365 licenses through Nerdio, I still have the ability to put the numbers and the license types in so I can get a more accurate representation of what this will look like when the customer deploys it, or when you guys deploy for the customer, rather. So you get started. How many users will have virtual desktop? Say 50. I could say, for argument, smaller organizations, say 25. Will any of them need personal desktops? Yeah, I need 3 of them. Maybe, I don't know, some architects are there, and you need GPU. So GPU pooled desktops needs, I want 3 of them as well. So we'll assume the rest of the users are pooled desktop users. Pooled desktop user means they're still going to have their own desktop as they would in a regular environment, right? They would be networked together. They're just sharing they're sharing one server. So if you had 4 different desktops up there, you're running it off one server or 2 servers. And we'll talk about that as we go through the rest of the estimator. So they're going to have a personal desktop. We're going to have a GPU pool desktop. We've got 3 of them that are going to share, a GPU machine. We've got a host instance. So the NV series is a GPU-enabled server rather. You can set up users for core. You can set up the number of hosts to be available 24/7. So I could have this scale up and have basically an infinite number of servers, but I want to make sure there's at least one server running. Now, if you knew maybe the organization that you're working for has shift work, so they're 24/7 and they have a different number of staff coming to work at different times throughout the day. You may have 2 or 3 machines that you always want to have available 24/7 to manage the needs of the users. So it's very, very flexible. Full desktop 1, right? I've got, so this is my 19 users. They're going to be around 40 hours a week. The host instance is going to be this E4S machine. So I would probably want to beef this up a little bit. User to CPU core ratio, dual workers. I could be knowledge workers, professional workers, power workers, number of hosts to scale out. There's 3 here. I could add in this section, I could add, additional servers. So I want this to be an application server. I can say, what size I want, how long is it running, is it a Windows or a Linux server? Linux runs just fine up in Azure. So if you ever were wondering, being a Microsoft product with Satya Nadella, Microsoft has embraced Linux. I believe there's almost as many or more Linux servers running in Azure than there are Windows servers. So then I come down here, I can talk about my licensing. So, I'm going to purchase it or I already own it. How many? 25. What license type? So these are the licenses that have the Windows multi-user license in it. Intune remote help, right? Office 365 licenses, Windows desktop licenses, Microsoft Defender licenses, SQL licenses, other licenses. All of that is put together through this estimate. If you get down to Azure hybrid use benefits, I am taking advantage of it or I'm not. If I want, so basically I've got a subscription license and then reserved instances. You're always going to find that the Nerdio tool has a 3-year RI ticked off by default. That will give you the best price. There is a statement on Microsoft's website that we can share with you. And thus far, Microsoft has not invoked a 12% penalty. There's absolutely no penalty if you fire up a machine or you do a 3-year reserve, and let's say 9 months down the road you want to terminate that machine. You could go ahead and terminate it and cancel the reserve, and there's no penalty. Microsoft will let us know if they ever choose to invoke that penalty, but thus far we don't have it. So it's really up to you. If you feel more comfortable doing it as 1 year at a time, because that's kind of how you're managing your customer, then for sure go ahead and do that. In-region backup, site-to-site VPN. I mean, there's most all services. Nerdio's done a great job again of putting this all together. If you want some assumptions about your average size of user in the FX profile container, whether you're going to do locally redundant storage or zone redundant storage, right? You get to pick those. Locally redundant storage is 3 copies of your data in 3 different default locations within the same data center. Zone redundant storage is 3 copies of your data in different availability zones. So typically a region will have a minimum of 3 availability zones or data centers. So ZRS is 3 copies of your data in 3 different data centers or availability zones. Please do not look at ZRS or LRS as backup. It is replication. So if by chance Microsoft says we're pulling one of the servers offline for repair, maintenance, whatever that may be, there's 2 copies of your data still out there. It's more a protection for you on Microsoft than it is backup or disaster recovery data. So please don't think of it that way. So when I get down to the bottom, I can go ahead and I can add discounts. I think you can actually add your own markup. So, if you're going through and you want to, mark up the Azure, the Nerdio product, whatever that may be. Again, the Nerdio tool is your tool. So to me, I wouldn't necessarily advertise to the customer that I'm using a Nerdio tool. It's one of my MSP tools in my bag of tricks that I give you a great experience, right? So then I can go ahead and I hit view costs. So based on what we put together here, we're $50 per user per month. So you may turn around, and this is where you make additional margin. You may turn around and say to the customer, it's $99 per user per month. And then you make a clear $49 per user per month profit. And this includes Mr. Customer or Miss Customer. This includes, it's your desktop, all your servers, your backup, your DR, your licensing, your Office licensing, your M365 licensing. All of that is included, and maybe your MSP fees for whatever that may be. Being proactive, providing optimization services, etc. It's all in $50 per user per month. So, and then if you save that estimate, you can go ahead and save it down here. If you need to call it back up later on, and then do in the report I showed you where it was, what was estimated versus what was deployed. You can go ahead and use that. So I'm going to scoot back over here. I'm running out of time, but I wanted to be able to share with you. Where are we here? Oh, sorry, I got to go in here. So you want to set up a desktop image. I got to get that out of my way. I'm going to go through the process right here. So it says add from Azure library. So I'm just going to put in, like, I'll put in the name of my image. I'm going to select, I can pick Windows Server, Windows 10 or Windows 11. For fun, I'm just going to pick anything in here. Where are we? So this one here is Windows 10. That's the pack, and then AVD plus MS365 application. So you have the MS365 Office Suite loaded. This is the size of the image that I'm going to create, and it's going to have 128 gig OS disk. Right now, I'm not going to join it to AD. I just want to get it set up. Do not create an image object if you wanted to select that. Enable time zone redirection. Not worried about that. The time zone for me is Eastern. If you have certificates you want to have installed. So this might sound a little bit fishy, but it uninstalls FX Logic from this image out of the gate. And then what happens is the system will figure out that FX Logic is not installed. And if perhaps in this image it was an older version of FS Logics, it will install the latest version as it's building out this server. So then I'm going to go down here. I'm going to put my username and password. It's pretty, relatively straightforward. If you have some, graphic distribution Azure Compute Gallery, you want to take advantage of that, or if you have scripts that you've created that you want to be run against the image as it's getting set up, you would turn that on. Down here, application management is that database of applications that are available to consume. So as you can see here, I have Adobe Pro. I can have that pre-canned on my image. There's 3CX and 7-zip. So if I go ahead and say OK, it takes roughly, a few minutes, and you'll see this image set up. What's this? Cancel. When it's done, it'll see this image set up and ready to go for your customer. Then I'm going to quickly fly down to host pools. Again, I can add a new host pool. I'm going to put my name up here, the description. Do I want to do it for multi-user desktop, or do I want to use remote apps? So I'm going to do multi-user desktop. I can decide if I want to add it to a directory. FS Logic is off. If you go down here to the name prefix, you can put whatever you want in here, but please make sure you put something nice in there, because that naming prefix will be the beginning of whatever name you want to call every one of the customers' servers and or desktops. So I just put in, customer name, right? I can pick the image that I created. So I'm going to attach the image to the host group. I'm going to say, here's my VM size for my host group. I need an OS disk to make sure that's set up for the operating system. I can use trusted launch. That will help me if I'm running like Gen 2, Windows 10 or Windows 11 images. And then I say, OK. Oh, do I have to go down? No. And then this should take me to here, where this is auto scale. So basically I can turn auto scale on. Again, I got my this is all laid out, so I'm going to zip through it pretty quick. Customer prefix, that's what every machine's going to be started up with. It's going to have the image. This is going to be the VM size. It's going to have this OS. And then I come down here. Let's say for now, I only want 2 base host full capacity. So I'm going to have 2 servers, like basically running. One will run all the time. 2 of them will be set up if this one needs more. And then if I need to, go beyond the 2, I'm going to say, run up to an additional 2. Down here, you can set up the pool setting, the settings for your host pool. Most people just leave this as default, so you're not trying to manage it later on. And then you can set up like triggers if you want, depending on, if your CPU utilization hits 65% for 5 minutes, or if it drops below 40% for 15 minutes, you can set these up. Just be careful, because if you did this, say at lunchtime, and everybody left for lunch and they come back and you set it for 15 minutes, when they try to log back in, it has to fire the machines back up. So there'll be a bit of a lag. Or you could just, say, do this, but after, 3 p.m. in the afternoon. So then, if this is going to happen, it's going to happen. We'll say this is medium for aggressiveness at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. And here's the message it's going to set out to the workers if they're on and it starts to shut down. And then if you want, you can turn on auto heal broken hosts. So I'm actually going to give you guys about 10 minutes for questions. I believe if I hit here, so I've already logged in. If I double click, and this is where it attaches the clipboard and printer for your desktop, and I can say allow, and I believe I'm going to log into my desktop. Yeah, so there you go. This is first login. So based on the steps, and I know I did it very quickly, if you have questions, if you want to get involved and you're not sure where to get started, please reach out to your account manager, your sales rep here within Sherweb. Let them know you want to get set up with Nerdio for AVD, and they will reach out to our Azure team and we can help you get the ball rolling. So here's my desktop. So this, again, I had 2 options. There's a client that can be downloaded. So if you're using it all the time, you probably want that client downloaded. Being that there's rules in my organization about installing applications, I'm not allowed to do that. So it also gives you the ability to have a URL, and you can log in with the URL. One part I didn't show you back here was basically once you've got all this set up, and you can see if I go to my host pools, get out of there. Manage hosts. You can see here where my one server's powered on, one's powered off until it's needed. And then when this one gets full, it'll go ahead and power on that one. And then the other part that I didn't show you is once you get your image and your host pool set up, then you go to your users and you assign a desktop or desktops. And then here's your login link where you can either download the client and or go to the website to start. So I'm about a minute over. You get to see your desktop. You get to see Adobe. So this is preloaded Adobe 7-zip. Alex, I don't know if you have questions that have come in, but I'm here if we want to open up for the next few minutes.
Yeah, so far, no questions. If anyone does have one, you can either put them into the chat, I can read them out, or you can unmute your mic and ask your question.
Forgot it did that. If you're still on for fun, I'm just going to go to fast.com, and I hope it doesn't let me down.
Yeah. All right. I'm not seeing any questions come in. Jason, if you want to show the slide that demonstrates how individuals can connect with the team,
Yeah.
maybe we can show that.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw that, but this bursted at about 2 gigs per minute. So let me just, whoa. Oh, let me put this back over here. Hang on. And then it'll show up. There you go. Yeah, so if you have any questions, if not now, later, and you'd like some insight, please reach out. You can go to sherweb.com/partners or send an email to partners@sherweb.com. And also there's our phone number and our social media. I'd love to partner with you and love to work with you. We've got a really seasoned team here at Sherweb at your disposal. All I do is ask you to give us a shot.
All right. Well, that concludes today's webinar. Thank you again for attending and have yourself an amazing rest of the week.
Thank you.